tuning in here on Bracker TV. I'm Cindy Bracker, and today I'll be demonstrating the proper setup and firing of the Bracker Raku Kiln. The complete kit includes a case of fire brick to build the pad on which the kiln sits, or you can use an old kiln lid as I'm doing here. Next, I use 3 half fire bricks as posts for the shelf. Please note the positioning of these bricks is very important. You want to have one brick directly opposite where the burner will point. A broken cinder block makes a good prop for your burner. It can be helpful to check your alignment and spacing prior to putting the shelf in place. Adjust your bricks and burner as necessary at this point, then place the shelf on top of the supports. It should look like this. Now we're ready to start placing pieces on the shelf. As you are loading the kiln, it may be helpful to know that the middle to back of the kiln will be the hottest part. This is due in part to the brick opposite the burner, which serves to reflect the heat up onto the shelf in that location. Do make certain that the pieces have a decent amount of breathing room between them. Then when you're satisfied with your load, carefully place the kiln over the shelf so that it rests in the fire brick. Check the distance on your burner. You want approximately 5 inches to start off, so adjust as necessary. Then turn on the propane at the tank. Put on a pair of heat-resistant gloves. Then release the valve on the burner just so you hear a gentle hiss. Then use a striker to ignite the flame. You will likely need to adjust the level of propane down. You're looking to have a lazy flame. To maximize the Venturi effect of the natural draft burner, I create a little brick house around the burner, with the upright bricks angled slightly out. Because Kansas is windy, I also put a brick on top of the kiln. Now let's listen to the sound of that flame. Initially, your flame should be yellow-orange in color and have a fairly soft roar. After about 10 minutes at this intensity, I'm going to approximately double it, with about a quarter turn of the valve on the burner. Hear the difference? After another 10 minutes, it's time to double it again. The color of the flame at this point is still quite yellow. The roar is much more intense, and the flame is shooting into the kiln, then bouncing off the brick. After about 10 more minutes, I notice that the bottom of the kiln is starting to show some color. The blocking brick is glowing red just a bit. Increase the flame again and continue to monitor. We are approaching red heat. From this point, it doesn't take long. After about 5 minutes, the entirety of the brick is glowing fairly bright red. 5 more minutes and the entire bottom of the kiln is glowing, so it's time to look up higher. The color is definitely climbing up the side of the kiln. Now is a good time to get my reduction materials ready. Leaves work well, and they're free, if you don't mind a bit of raking and bagging. Whatever you use, you don't need a large amount in your chamber. A small amount in the bottom for cushion, and reserve some to place on top for a more even reduction. Sawdust is also good and readily available. We're fortunate to have a cabinet maker just down the street, and he loves it when we take his trash. But this is my favorite reduction material. It's called Excelsior. It used to be a lot easier to find back when people still worked with a wood lathe. Now you can buy it as packing material. Now that that's all set, let's check on that kiln, shall we? I'm now seeing considerable glow all the way up the kiln. You may have noticed that the Bracker Raku Kiln has 3 holes directly above the burner port. These serve not only as spy holes, but also aid in circulatory heat flow. In order to burn, fire of course needs oxygen, so as the flame enters the kiln through the burner port, it hits that bottom brick, deflects, and angles up to the shelf. On the other side, it then finds a source of oxygen at the front of the kiln, drawing the flame upwards and forward out of the kiln. At this point, I'm looking not just at the color inside the kiln, but more at the surface of the pots. They are now very shiny, similar to a hot, wet light bulb. This tells me the glazes have matured, and now we're ready for the fun to begin.